Good morning.
Is it morning? It's morning.
It could be.
It doesn't matter.
Hey, listen, it's whatever you want.
They can edit this to look like any time of day.
Good evening.
Yeah. Good evening. Good morning. Good night.
Happy Sunday. It's
Yeah.
all good. So today we're going to be talking about consistency.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is a topic that I like.
Yes, I have a quote for you. Shall I read it?
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. We all have to start somewhere, and doing something is better than doing nothing at all. Start small so you don't get discouraged and give up. Remember, it's all about the consistency.
Start small so you don't get discouraged and give up. I like that. I like that because, that's why from couch to 5K apps exist, right? It's the idea that if I've been on a couch and I want to run a 5K, I'm probably not going to get up tomorrow and run it. I'm going to walk a mile first. I'm going to jog at the mile and a half and build up to the 5K outcome, right?
I think consistency in any aspect of our lives is one of the most overlooked and underrated things. Using the running analogy is that we tend to be at the starting line and we hear that gun go off and then we start to sprint, right? We sprint to a goal that we might not even know where we're headed, right? And the problem with that is that once the sprint starts and you're unclear as about where we're going, you tend to slow down and then you eventually stop, right? Whereas the consistency is that maybe you jog a little bit longer, you end up going a little bit farther, and then you ultimately avoid burnout.
Well, yeah, there's a reason why runners track their mile pace. There's a reason why corporations do quarterly updates and quarterly reports based on annual forecasts. So yeah, I mean, there's a reason why when you're making a meal, you have a recipe that breaks it down, right? You can't make a great meal in the first 10 minutes, but you can sure mess it up. So I think the key here, the consistency factor here is being able, do you have measurables in your life, in your business, in your relationship with your money, where you can say, am I being consistent? And with that consistency, it will compound. And when a space shuttle takes off, there's over 1,000 adjustments a minute for it to stay on track to where it wants to end up in space. 1,000 adjustments a minute. So that consistency, some people might think, oh, it's a set it and forget it. No, consistency is continually reevaluating. Are you getting the key outputs you need to achieve the goal? If I am running, back to the running example, if I'm running a 10K and I know that my training was 8-minute miles, and after 1 mile in the 10K, I'm at 7 minutes, I'm probably out-kicking my coverage on this, and by mile 6, 7, I'm gonna be pretty freaking tired before I want to be, right? In that last mile of the 10K. So I think the critical thing here to kick this off is that, do you have measurables in your life and business to show where the consistency is? Have you chunked down the big goal? If you wanna save, what's that? If you wanna save $10,000 a year, it's $27 a day, something like that. I'm bad with math when it comes to like from annual to daily, but yeah, I think that's huge. Consistency.
Well, yeah. I think the message is the same, right? Is that like you take care of the pennies and the dollars take care of themselves, right? You watch the pennies, the dollars take care of themselves. You focus on your habits day in and day out, and then the outcomes automatically, they're a byproduct of it.
Yeah. So how do you're one of the most consistent guys I know. When it comes to like fitness, family, finance, in your business. I mean, that's just my observation. How do you stay consistent? How do you stay on track? Like, do you have a mechanism in place where you're like, hey, I haven't done this in one of those categories lately. It's time to get back on track there. How do you?
Yeah, so I guess that's a
two-parter.
Yeah, two-parter, right? Yeah. So the biggest thing is that I've made peace with. I don't need to be great occasionally. I need to be good, even mediocre consistently, right? So that's the first part, is that I don't need to be at 100% every single day in all aspects, but I just need to show up in some capacity, right? And that could be as small as reading my son a bedtime story at night when I wasn't home all day, or that could be as small as having 2 real estate conversations with past clients, right? None of those things by themselves are life-changing, but adding those up over a period of time really changes your life.
Yeah, I like that. And so who holds you accountable around consistency?
So
Other than self-discipline, right?
yeah, and like people in my life, coaches, peers, mentors, my top 5, right? I think that the people that you surround yourself with, you are a byproduct of in some aspects, right? But yeah, true accountability is self-accountability, and that comes from knowing the why and knowing what you're going to get out of insert activities.
Yeah. Is there a podcast you've listened to or a book you've read? I'm just throwing this out there that has helped you with your consistency.
Yeah, so we are in the Keller Williams ecosystem, right? So there are a couple. Number one is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent podcast, and then also Think Like a CEO, and then finally The One Thing. Those all. Hey, good segue. Those podcasts, they get rolled out on Mondays.
Yep.
And so I make a point to Monday and Tuesday is kind of my heavy day regarding podcast education, because it's new content and all of those things.
You mentioned The One Thing, and I actually wanted to read, so this is page 55, chapter 6, it's a disciplined life, and at the bottom of it, of page 55, it says this: you don't need to be a disciplined person to be successful. In fact, you can become successful with less discipline than you think. For one simple reason: success is about doing the right thing, not about doing everything right. And I would just add to that, success is about doing the right thing consistently, and not about doing everything right. So, like, for example, for fitness, if I like ice cream, I can have it once a week, maybe twice. I shouldn't be having that 6 nights a week, right? And so, yeah, maybe I look forward to that treat or that reward because 80% of the time I'm absolutely dialed in on the right thing.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's also setting up guardrails for yourself, right? Or rules or standards, right? I guess a personal example is that if I'm working late on night 1, I will not work late at night 2, so I can be back home with my family and I'm not gone for any real amount of time, right? I do that consistently, then my family knows that Dad's the kind of person to be home at night for dinner, at night for homework, and all of those things.
Yeah, that's.
And then so translating that into, let's say you're in a sales business, like, okay, I will not go more than 2 days without having some sort of lead generation conversations, or I will not go more than 1 week without going on an appointment with a potential client.
Yeah.
Right. And it allows you to, like, these are my rules, and these are my rules that I implement consistently to reach the whatever goal you want.
How do you track these different things you just like named like 3 things there, like it's in the back of your mind, right? But how are you tracking that?
Yeah, so the best tool to use is the best tool that's going to work for you, right? Me, it's all about calendar, time blocking, having a relationship with time. And that could come in the form of looking at your calendar on Sundays and planning out your week. The first of the month, looking at your month more from a bird's eye perspective to see what could get in the way of your goals and your achievements that you want to set for yourself. You know, it's about the biggest, the most important relationship we have is our relationship with time.
I do those things as well. I would agree that those are great ways to do it, interact with, and I agree with what you said. The one you use is the best, right? I paraphrased what you said. 2 things I would add to that conversation. I use an app called Routine. I think I paid like $20 for lifetime usage. It's free after that, and it's for the full app. And you can literally create routines daily, weekly, every other day, monthly, however often you want to set parameters, and you can track multiple things at once. So I've been using that for about 4 months now, and I've noticed some difference. And then I also use the Reminder app on my iPhone, and I'm actually gonna read you something for our audience here. So, and I'm going to, our media team will pull off of us for just a second and put this on the screen. So feel free to pause this, take a screen grab of what you'll see in a moment. So to set this up, every 5 days, this pops up on my iPhone as a reminder, and it's called If Every Day ... And it says, if every day looked like your schedule yesterday, how would your year end? Would you be proud of what you've accomplished? And there's 3 things around this I want to point out. Number one, this guarantees every 5 days I'm pausing and inspecting who I was the day before. Number two, it doesn't just ensure that my Thursdays are great because every Friday it goes off. It's on Sundays it will pop up, on Thursdays it will pop up, on Tuesdays it will. So it's always forcing me to look back at my last 24 hours and say, does this get me where I want to be, right? And where this hit me really hard is the third thing. I started looking at it as a friend, as a father, as a husband, as a business owner, as a fitness person, right? So it wasn't any one area of my life or business or whatever. It was all these areas. And for me, that's the reminder I needed. It was a simple system, a simple tool I use, and a system to inspect like what I expect to be.
Yeah, you introduced this to me 2-3 months ago, and I have the same thing on my phone every 5 days. And what I liked about it is that it's almost like a miniature mirror. You know, it's almost like a miniature like reset and an acknowledgement of like, oh, okay, I might be sliding in one or two aspects, and I might be killing it in other aspects.
Right.
But it's about acknowledgement, realignment, and then acting accordingly.
Well, oftentimes when I'm coaching clients, I have clients over the country or whatever, and when they're crushing an area, they're lacking elsewhere. And I think the goal in living a fulfilled life, a consistent life, is to maintain peaks and minimize those valleys. And when you hit a valley, which happens, you come out of those valleys quicker. And that's either with people, your environment, the mirror image. I think those are the reasons we all have 24 hours in a day, and some people just do more with the 24 hours, and it's simply because they've life hacked different things to say, am I maximizing my time, and am I happy with where I'm spent?
Yeah, that reminds me of like, what's the difference between a rut and a grave? The depth, right? To where is okay, it's okay to have lulls, it's okay to have inconsistencies, yet acknowledging it, pulling yourself out of it to move forward.
We are finishing up a book club with Forward Focus. That book is 10x is Easier Than 2x by Dan Sullivan. And in chapter 5, it talks about 3 types of days that we should be living. It talks about essentially a buffer day, it talks about a focus day, and then it talks about a free day or a restorative day. And in the book club yesterday, you were there, that's why I keep saying we, one of our participants said, you know, I look forward to my free days. Like if I work hard on these days, I look forward to my free days. And I liked what she was saying, and I agree with that to an extent, but I also think that free days, if you're living a consistent life and you're well-rounded in all these different areas to be maximizing your life potential, free days shouldn't be the result, they should just be a part.
Free days are a part of the process.
Right, and your focus days are calibrating what to do on the free days or what to do on the performance days so you can maximize your time. And then performance days are just that. It's not practice days. It's performing, right? It's like I've worked so well on the focus days, I've recharged so much on my free days, disconnected to connect, that my performance days are like autopilot. Like I'm just performing. And I love that book, chapter 5 specifically.
Translating that into the world of fitness is that when you have a rest day, whether it's forced or not, sometimes it's hard to take a rest day, but sometimes it's absolutely needed. When you're back on that day off of a rest day, your performance is greater than ever because you're recharged, you're hydrated, you've eaten well, and you've given yourself time to relax and restore. It's almost like I call it the archer, right? It's like you pull back the arrow and it's back for a moment, but then once it's released, where does it go?
Right.
Substantially farther than where it was.
I would agree with that because my exercises on Monday, Tuesday are always most times better than Thursday, Fridays, or Saturdays. And that's, for me right now in the phase I'm in, part of that's contingent on if my daughter sleeps through the night, but a lot of that is just the demand of my career. When you have 8 to 12 hour days every day, and I'm talking nonstop, right, with 15-minute breathe moments,
wall to wall.
by Friday you're zapped a little bit.
Yeah. So you have that reminder app, and you have your calendar, and you have all the things in place. What do you do when you acknowledge that you've come off track a little bit?
Yeah. So we have a tool at Forward Focused, actually. It's on our website. It's called Scheduled versus Actual. And for somebody who's brand new listening to this and wants to be more consistent, I would encourage you for the next 2 weeks, document each hour from 8 to 8 what you have scheduled on your calendar. And then at the end of each hour, did you do what was scheduled or not? And that will show you two things. Do you have the right things planned? Because if you're not getting the results you want, but you're following the calendar, you just simply aren't calendaring the right things. And that's a fix. Or the other thing is what's distracting you from the right things. And so for me, with that setup, I will use that tool, I don't know, 3 to 4 times a year and just do a quick assessment for the next 10 days. How am I doing? In the moment I start to miss emails, miss calls, miss appointments, miss business essentially, or miss life moments in my family, that's when I start to audit my calendar again and I start to get things off the plate. And I'll just end with this on that question. It's not about time blocking more. It's not about getting up earlier. It's about truly letting go of things when they no longer service you or your life. I think sometimes we feel like we got to keep adding. I need another app. I need another podcast. I need another accountability partner. And sometimes it's just saying, I've released this from my life. It no longer services me. It no longer serves me. And if it doesn't serve me, I can't serve others. So I just inspect it consistently.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that makes me think of, it's like most things in life are other people's priorities, right? Look at your email inbox. Look at your social media feeds and platforms, right? Those are all other people's stuff, right? And being able to acknowledge, like, hey, this is great, and I'm sure your emails, there's some tied to you in some, or me in some way, shape, or form. And yet, is this really the 20%? Is this really my one thing, right? I think people like to hide in busyness, to where busy, especially in the age that we are in, busyness is a badge of honor, right? But I would counter that with, is busy really productive?
That's right. Yeah. And I think a consistency tool I'll give the audience now, and I know you use this or have used it, every single day I do a rundown. And it's
Yes.
very simple. It's 3 things. And so if you haven't heard this before, here it is. And if you have, it's a great reminder probably. I just had a new coaching client sign on this morning, and he replaced the client I offboarded. And I said, this is not negotiable if I'm coaching you, so here it is. 3 things. Number 1, you are a man of your word, a woman of your word. Whatever you said you're going to do that day, you do. And so did your messages go out, your callbacks, your emails, even acknowledging I didn't get to you yet, but I said I would, so here's my acknowledgement. Number 2, are you double booked, triple booked for tomorrow? That now is the time to correct that. Do you have enough time to get from appointment to appointment? Do you know where you need to be? Do you have all the stuff needed for that? Preparation is key, and when people are late or they aren't executing at the highest level or consistent in their outcomes, it's because they're not prepared. And then the third one is, what is your success list or hit list for the next day? In our world, that always ties into lead generation, so it's a number of contacts you want to make, but it's also things outside of growth. So what project do you finally want to finish? How do you win tomorrow outside of growth? And so I do those three things every day for all my businesses, including my household. And it's transformed my consistency habit.
Yeah, for sure. And what I'm hearing is that because you're front loading the next day, right? Like our day does not start on that day of, it starts the day before, maybe even earlier in the week, maybe even earlier in the month, right? And so by getting ahead of all of that, it helps. What I heard is that it helps streamline your day, and you get more out of any given day that you're in.
Yeah, I mean, if I spend 45 minutes on a Sunday prepping for my week wins. I have this philosophy, I never miss a Monday, right? And there's 3 things I try and do every Monday morning. I exercise or sweat before 11 a.m. I do something nice for somebody else before 11 a.m. and I lead generate. And I notice that my week is more consistent and more effective if I win on Monday.
Yeah. What I love about that and what I heard is front loading. Because you and I spoke about this the other day. Is that I'm a huge believer in front loading, like your week and your day and your month, and that way it gives you permission to loosen up either at the end of the week or at the end of the month. Just a sales example. Let's say you have a goal to hit 4 contracts in any given month. Okay, well there's 30 days in a month. What if you prioritize front loading the first couple of weeks, and then okay, bam, you got 2, maybe 3 in the first part of the month, and then you only have to get 1 in the remaining, rather than you're looking at your schedule, you're looking at your calendar, like, oh, it's the last week of the month, I still have 4 to go. And that's not a very good feeling because it's going to carry over into the next month.
I agree with that, and it also gives you choice. Once you have front load and you're crystal clear on what you need to do, you can make choices now. You're not forced to do something because you chose to front load. Now you have freedom. It brings me to another thing. I want to get your opinion on this. So I've really been subscribing and doing a lot of studying lately around why, in an age where we have so much information at our fingertips, we have people not achieving their goals, right? So many people with either mental health gaps in where they want to be, spiritual gaps, physical gaps in their health and nutrition. They're not financially making what they want to make, whatever it is. And I think it comes down to three things. I think if you don't know something, you do need education. But I think we're in education overload a little bit. And that's why a lot of the podcasts here are about action. Like, here's an app that will help you. Use this, do this. Here's what I do, right? But anyways, the second thing was, okay, education is if you don't know. But if you do know, and you're not getting results, it's execution. It's just do it. And I think we're almost like we're getting ready to get ready. And it's just like, that blows my mind a little bit with so much information. And then the last piece comes down to consistency. It's if you're getting results sporadically, you're lacking consistency in your life. Because you already know what to do. You've proven you can get results. What mechanisms are you using for consistency? What do you think on those three kind of pillars?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think there is very much such a thing as too much information and too many options, right? Where you get overloaded with all the things day in and day out, and it almost paralyzes people to make a decision in the breath of choosing your path, choosing to what you're committed to, right? And then, yes, piggybacking off of that is that we live in a society where it's like instant gratification. You know, you want it now, the one-click prime, or just hit the button, baby. That's all you got to do, right? I think that people need to make peace with the process to where things do take time. And then once you're more committed to the process and not necessarily the outcome is almost an afterthought. It's like you've arrived without even knowing it because you're so committed to the process of evolving your business or your health or your family and all those things.
What are your thoughts about environment impacting your consistency?
I can say that environment is, if not the top thing, then the top three things in the breadth of people and your content and what you take in and what you allow yourself to learn or unlearn, right? I think that you're the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and it's okay to audit them every so often.
Yeah.
Based on the kind of person that you want to be, not who you were.
Yeah, so I guess let's kind of let's land this plane, if you will. So I think I agree with that. I think environment, which I describe and define as people, physical location, and then like habits, that's your environment. I think that is the number one influencer on where you're going to be in 5 years. Show me your environment, I'll show you in 5 years. And so I'll give a quick example. I was in Austin, Texas last month, traveling, and I was with somebody, and that person, we were together for 2 days, and then they went to somewhere else, and I went home. And this person told me that when they were with me, they exercised, they ate clean, they had 1 or 2 adult beverages, not more than that, and that didn't continue once I left. And I just thought that was interesting. And for me, it's a good reminder that consistency compounds, and that success and habits is sequential. It's not sudden.
Yeah, and then regarding people, is that people are your greatest asset, and they're also the messiest, right? Because humans are messy as a species, right? And I think that that's the hardest one to rip that Band-Aid off, as far as leaving who you were in order to become who you want to be. Sometimes you have to leave people behind.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
New levels, new devils, man. I mean, there's new challenges and new conversations to be had. And remember, you're letting previous versions of yourself, which include relationships, acquaintances, etc., they're holding you back of who you're destined to become. And no one said it was going to be easy to level up, but they did say it'd be worth it.
Yeah, and the greatest blessing is that once you're on the other side of that, it's a whole new world.
Yeah. Well, man. Well, Let's magic carpet ride, whole new world
Yep, let's land this plane.
into the next one.
Forward focus, baby.